I'm going to call the meeting to order. Rebecca, will you please call the roll?
Ham.
Here.
Esty.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Here.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Rowe.
Row. Matt, are you there?
I'm here.
Say present. Can you hear okay?
You're just about here.
All right.
Okay. Council, are there any changes to the agenda tonight? Anybody have anything? If not, we'll move on to, oh, are we taking that completely off?
Yes, he's not going to be here tonight.
Oh, okay. I thought we were still going to do it. He just wasn't going to be here.
Oh, no.
No. Okay. So under public appearances, Justin Pilkington, we're not going to do that one. That one's going to come off. Okay. We'll move with the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 22nd, 2024 council meeting. Excuse me. Approval of the August 2nd, 2024 payroll in the amount of $164,699.31. Acceptance of the Beautification Commission minutes. Acceptance of the Carnegie Museum Board minutes. Resolution of employment in the Water Department. Resolution of employment in the Park and Recreation Department. Resolution of salary adjustment for a telecommunications specialist. Approval of liquor license for Asian Faux Bistro and Torino's Pizza and Steakhouse. Approval of ACH payment to the Department of Revenue in the amount of $16,706.56. Approval of special claim, which is WEX in the amount of $4,200.92. And approval of total claims in the amount of $294.17. We had two claims more than $75,000. One to Iowa Bridge and Culvert for $649,312.52. This is for the Crow Creek Bridge. And one to Northway Corporation for deep well repair out on near Pleasant Lake. That's our Jordan well out there for $330,085.90.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Flournoy, second by Gandy. Are there any discussions or questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was approved unanimously. So we will move on to public forum and appearances. Joe Hurd's going to be first, our street superintendent, and we're going to talk about the compost site.
And I am here tonight to ask the council to allow me to close the compost site. The cost and the burden that it's causing the street department is pretty intense, I think. I spend about 5% of our time out there. I've given the city council some numbers, which I believe that is probably I've missed some stuff. I think that I can still continue to serve the community maybe in a different way. I have a few options that I think that we can do. One of them, the best one that I can think of, is maybe do a few more brush pickups for single residents, less than a pickup load. I know that Waste Management is, they still pick up grass. They just don't do very much anymore. They pick up, like, they have a route. They do like 8 to 10 bags a week or something like that. So I think that there's ways that we can still continue to serve the community without leaving the site open. The site is being severely abused. You guys have some pictures there. What's happened in the past 4 or 5 months is I was told by Mark Brown used to allow me to dump the big logs out there, and he no longer can allow me to do that. I'm not sure what happened, if it's the DNR or whatever, but I have probably 30 to 40 truckloads of the big logs that you can see in those pictures that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with. The compost site is slowly building out there. The mulch, the logs, all of that stuff. The best way for me to give you a picture of what to think about is the dump site in Des Moines, how high it is. That's not where we're at, but we may never get there, but that's what's happening out there. The material that we have out there, we have no way to get rid of it. You know, just for an example, the mulch loading, which we'll never get rid of. I still have mulch from 3 years ago. I ground in March. It was $15,000. We ground 3 years ago. We never got rid of that. We won't get rid of the mulch that we have, so we're taking in material. We're paying to get it processed, and there's no place to put it. I mean, there's people that'll take it for free, but why are we paying to process something? I think I have a solution for the brush, for maybe 8 to 10 inches, you know, around. I have a temporary one. I think I have a burn site that maybe I can do some burning and offset some of that cost. But there's still time, you know, there's still my time. Even if I offer another brush pickup, or I do 2 or 3 of them, it's still time and money for us. The cost is just really gotten incredible. You know, when we first started 13, 14 years ago, it cost $2,000 to tub grind. And we just didn't have the amount of stuff coming in. We have contractors that, I was out there the weekend before last on Friday, and I seen people coming in there that are who this is for. A guy with a little load of brush, or, you know, a bag of grass or something like that. I talked to all of them. I stopped them and asked them, you know, who they were. Most of them, that's what they were for, and I think we can still provide that. But then I also seen the other people. I had a guy from Packwood show up. He didn't even know what I was talking about, that it's for local residents. I had 2 contractors show up. And, you know, I think some of them do know, but that's, you know, that doesn't matter. Even our contractors that mow, that grass and the leaves that they bring in, that material has to be processed by me. It's building up. It's a lot. It's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago. It's really gotten to be a bunch. So, you know, the time we're spending out there, I have 7 full-time people. Basically, to put it in perspective, one of my guys is there for 6 months of the year. I have material that we can't get rid of, and until we can find a long-term solution, I'm asking for the gates to be closed. And I'll provide a brush pickup to ease some of that pain, and I can do that as soon as, this is what, the 12th of August. We could do the 15th of September, or we could make it the 1st of the month for the rest of the year until we can figure something out.
How would you give notice to the public of a brush pickup?
Same way we do through the water bill. We do a brush pickup right now, May 1st and October 1st every year anyway.
And how would we give notice that if for example the compost site was closed?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to get it out there. If you know, that's up to you guys how you want to do that, whatever you think.
Yeah, I would think you would put a sign over the sign that's out there, just stating why.
Some citizens right now, the compost site is, I mean, it states hours of when it's open, but sometimes it's closed when it's open.
It was closed one time, and that was on me, because I wanted to be out there to monitor the abuse that's coming from a contractor, and I did actually catch it, you know, but that was on me. I should have not done that. That's my fault.
You mentioned at our committee meeting too that sometimes people will drive around.
Yeah, we had to add more fence. I recently spent $500 to extend the fence.
Okay, so now it's secure such that if we put like
Unless-
a sign out there,
Unless
you
they
know.
want to keep driving, or
Okay.
they dump it over. You know, the thing is they're just so used to doing it
Yeah.
that when they drive down there, they're not going to leave it on the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. You said something interesting about the water department's budget,
Streets.
Street
Street
comes out of
department's
my
budget.
operating budget.
and your budget is not.
My budget does not change, hasn't changed, for it is based off of road use tax, gas tax. It's not changed in years. It's from our population. Whatever our population is that the right way to say it, Rebecca?
Yeah.
And
Per
you
capita.
said that you're spending at least like between $30,000 and $50,000 a year on the compost site. Is that
So
correct?
I gave you some hourly rates. Those hourly rates include labor, fuel, and breakdowns. Those are DOT low side rates for all that equipment. And I actually paid the price for that this winter during that storm. I had both my loader and my backhoe broke down in the middle of those storms, and it was directly caused when you push the brush up then sticks come back, and they come up and they hit sensors and wires, and it was an intermittent thing on both of those things. Actually, the loader was sitting on the airport out there at Bob's. It was set there for an hour before we got it running again. So, you know, there's equipment cost that goes along with it that is, you know, you don't see it right away.
If you take that down to 2 pickups a year, you don't think, you think that's manageable?
I think I can do more than that to
Personally,
and that's what I told Elizabeth.
You talked about
In the
maybe like
committee meeting, yes.
between 4 and 6.
You know what? The
potentially.
town's going to look like a mess if we have that, in my opinion. I'm going to be very impatient with this topic. I wouldn't want to see it any more than
I can
2
do
times
more,
a year.
I can do more brush pickups than that.
I know, but you know what? Everybody's going to have stuff out on the curb all year round. It's going to look terrible. It looks bad enough twice a year because people put it out there a month ahead of time.
The reason I say that is I can cut down the amount of stuff that's coming into the compost site over half, I believe, by me going out and picking up from the residents that deserve the pickup. Single residents, not businesses, not people that own rental properties. People
Well,
that
then
deserve-
keep it at twice a year. Why not just keep it twice a year then and tell people this is, we did that for years.
Yeah, I'm okay
Right?
with that. I was offering the other thing to get the gate shut. You know, I'm down with that. Whatever.
I like the plan to change it and everything, but will it prevent the abuse that's out of the compost site right now?
It will once the gates are shut. The
But
only thing they can,
shutting the gates right now doesn't really stop. I mean, they're dumping big logs on the other side of the fence, between the bus barn.
no,
and
you
the-
can't. The 20-foot trailers that are bringing in those 46-inch logs,
Mhm.
when the gates are shut, they can't come through
They
anymore.
can't come through,
That's
okay.
the stuff that's building up.
And you don't think they'll just dump it on the other side of the
Nah.
fence? Okay.
Maybe one will. The one that.
If,
in the picture.
If that starts, we should pass an ordinance right now to fine them if that starts happening, because to me, that's breaking the law.
It has happened. It has happened.
But don't we have, that would be illegal dumping already, don't we?
Yeah, that would be.
Do we have something in our ordinance about that?
Rules about that.
We do.
So the other option, did anybody look at, do citizens want this and are willing to pay $1 or $2 or whatever it is a month
There was
to put on their
conversation.
water bill? Was that ever discussed?
I agree with you, but it's like setting a guard shack up or putting cameras up. It's still more time. Somebody has to monitor it.
Sure.
Somebody has to be there at the guard shack. So how is that going to, me doing a brush pickup, I get a control. How is a 18-year-old kid gonna battle with a 50 or 60-year-old, somebody that's passionate about getting it? He's not gonna be able to do it. I know, I was out there, I battled with them. They can be feisty. Most people weren't, but there's a few that can't see it. How are they gonna handle those situations? How are they gonna know if that person even should be in there or not?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying, did the committee look at all and do the citizens want to be charged to keep it open?
That wouldn't cut down on the abuse, though.
Right.
And then we'd have to, then the citizens would be paying, and sometimes doubly
So-
paying, because they'd be charged by the contractors to dispose of trees that would then go in the compost site the citizens are
Yeah.
paying for to dispose of.
They're already double paying now.
Yeah.
Because of the time that I'm there, they're
Yeah.
paying for it. They're paying the contractor to remove the tree or to mow the grass, and then they're paying for my time. They're already paying twice, in my opinion.
I think, you've been kind enough to share and show to council members the compost site, but I'm not sure residents are going to have enough notice. If we were to close it, say, immediately based on council vote this evening and close it, say, in a week or so, we're going to have people who are upset whether we wait a week or a month or a year, but I don't know whether this is enough notice to give maybe the public a chance to weigh in.
My opinion is I don't think anything that we decide here tonight has to be 100% permanent, but it fixes the immediate need of the dumping that is occurring. And then we can start having those conversations about what is the right next step. So I think we should label it temporarily closed and then figure out what we're going to do from there.
It would be great if a private company would take it over. That would be ideal, I feel, but I don't know that there's been enough interest in that.
You mean like you could close it for a period of time? So the public knows that it's closed for however many days or months and see what the reaction is. I mean, it's interesting you said, Joe, that the street department budget hasn't changed for, as I understand it, decades. And that means it's not been indexed to an inflation. It's the same fixed dollar amount as it was.
Operating budget.
Operating budget.
There is other monies out there for streets
Okay.
for me, but really my operating budget is what is, you know, I'm not gonna get into the budget thing, but it's way less today after COVID than what it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago. I have less and less money because of, you know, the cost of everything.
And maintaining that the site is costing you more and more, is that right?
It's costing a lot of money. There's a lot of abuse out there.
The cost is increasing? Or is it staying the same?
Yeah, because I don't know, like those logs, those
Yeah.
pictures that you have, I don't know where I'm gonna get rid of them right now. I have probably 30 to 40 loads of them. I haven't even sifted, so if we're gonna burn, I gotta go through and I gotta sift stuff out. So for me to go out there and straighten it up right now, and if I was to burn, we're looking at 2 weeks of the street department, all 7 guys, every piece of equipment I got out there running, you know, full tilt, 8 hours a day, just to get it separated. And then I don't even know how many loads are out there.
What if we were to agree to close it within a fixed period of time? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days, and it will be closed until further notice? Something like that. Then citizens have a chance, they know it's going to be closed. Maybe there's some people who lawfully should use it or be able to use it. They have a chance to drop off that brush before there's a pickup. And they know it's coming, it's going to be closed, and then we can see how the public weighs in on it once it is closed.
I'd love to offer, I would even offer a brush pickup even quicker. You know, I mean, that's up to you guys to do what you want to do, but as long as it's open, they're going to hurry and they're going to bring every tree that they can. Not this, I'm talking about the contractors. And it's happening right now. I can show you the new stuff that, you know, but that's up to you guys, whatever you guys want to think is best.
How soon can we do a brush pickup? How soon we can get the
What did
notice
you
out?
say our regularly scheduled one is October 1st?
It's the first Monday in
October
I could,
1st.
it's
but you
October,
could do
is what
another
it's
September.
normally scheduled at, but if I have to, I'll do one sooner than that.
But people won't be prepared for a sooner brush pickup. They're looking at October 1st historically, so.
I can do one sooner and
Yeah,
then
there's
do that one too.
two sides to this
and-
question
Yep.
every turn.
But the people that want the compost site open now are the people that will be ready September 1st for
Right.
brush pickup.
Right.
So, I mean, it just alleviates
Right.
them bringing out to the
We can start
compost
getting
site.
the word out. I can go on the radio. We can put it on the, you know,
Put it on the gates when it's closed.
I can put it on the
you know?
gates, and then when they go down there, they'll see it. They'll say, you know, brush pickup is whatever date we decide to do it.
If you're wanting to do a billing insert, we need 4 weeks.
I can put it on the compost site out there, and we'll sweep through the town and get it done. I do want to make sure that hopefully it's okay that it's single dwelling houses that I'm going to be having a list of, not rental properties. Because what will happen is the contractors that own rentals will stick their stuff on their rental properties. It's, you know, let's do it for the people that it was designed to happen for.
But isn't the biggest concern the size of the trees and the matter that's being dumped, right, with the contractors?
The contractors have 20-foot dump boxes, and
Okay.
so that last Friday and Saturday that I was out there, I seen 30 people, residents that should be dumping there, bring all their stuff, and that one 20-foot long dump box had more than all of them put together.
Right. I guess I was just thinking because we already, right, we have restrictions on what you can put out there for brush pickup. So, it, you know, like size and
Pickup load is what
quantity.
I'm hoping that we can do.
Yeah, So
If I
as
pick
long
up
as
a
we
pickup
limit
load-
it to that, could we just leave it open for everybody if it's just limited in size?
You can.
There's a third cost that you're not talking about, because if you guys are just focused on compost for 2 weeks, what else is not
Yeah.
getting done? There's a third cost to the whole city.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this should be your busiest time working on streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did Park Street for 123,000. It's 1,250 feet. That's 4 city blocks. We did it for around 123. Less hours in it than what I'm spending at the compost site.
Yeah.
Tonight, could we set a time where we could actually hear from the public? Could we actually set a forum time of some type where we would invite them to come and speak with us in response to this?
Well, I would move that we shut it down temporarily and before setting a forum, because then at least maybe we'll get people's attention so people will come speak about it, because we've certainly been talking about this for over a year now.
Right.
You know, it's not new. So I guess I would make a motion that we just shut it down temporarily.
And do you want the regular semi-annual pickup
I think so.
in October
and
and, what'd you say, April, whatever it
I
is?
can do another one too. to
And we can talk
alleviate some
about
of
that. And maybe at the forum, you know, we can get some more information or some more input, and, but I think that, you know, to staunch the flow of the funds that we're just pouring into it. That's why I would.
So your motion is to shut the compost site down until further notice.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, so we got a motion to shut the compost site down and a second on the floor. Any other discussion?
Yes, should we set a date, or what, this is subject to what, a public forum? Are we going to
Or
make
just
that?
shut it down now and then set a public forum, and then we can discuss it, and then
Okay, would that be a second motion then?
I would say so.
It would just be an agenda item. It doesn't need to be a motion, I wouldn't think, but.
Okay, can we agree that we're going to the city will set a public forum, a date for a public forum?
I guess
After we vote on this motion.
Yeah, let's vote
Okay.
on this motion
All right.
now.
Put a motion on the floor.
Yeah, so is there any other discussion? Not, please call the roll. And the motion is to shut it down.
Esti.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes, I understand it's temporary, to set it down temporarily, that's how I understand it.
Until further notice.
The motion was to set it down temporarily, I believe.
Yes.
She didn't say
Okay.
that, but I don't know what temporary means, so I asked her, do you mean until further notice? And she said yes.
Yeah,
that's
so
what I
I'm
meant by
sorry,
set.
so do I need to amend it temporarily? I mean, I guess I would
Read
keep
the
it
motion
as
back.
temporary.
Alls I have is shut down temporarily, keeping the semi-annual pickup.
Yes, that's what, I would just keep it that
Okay,
language.
Okay,
my
yes.
second stands.
Kness.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Okay. So we can have an open forum. To me, people can call each of the council members too. And I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. Do we need a special meeting just for this?
We don't
Let's
need
just put it
to,
on the next agenda.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
the next council meeting, have
Okay.
a whole public forum for people to speak to this issue. I don't think
Okay.
we need a motion, just put it on the agenda.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay,
You could get 50 people that show up that want to speak, though. If we give them each 3 minutes, it's gonna be a lot.
yeah, but, hopefully a couple people will speak for several
Yeah.
in the same topic, so,
I think we have rules to that, right?
Yeah.
You can't speak
Yeah,
more
I
than
think
3
we
minutes.
can-
You can't repeat yourself.
I think we can manage that. Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda for next
Can I
next
ask
meeting.
one more question of Dale
Yeah.
before he leaves? And if you referred to this already, I apologize, but under, you have tub grinding, $15,000. Is that once a year?
It depends. Last year, it was just once, and I kept piling everything in there that I could because I didn't want to spend out of that budget year. I knew it was gonna be 15,000, so in March, I went ahead and spent that. It could be more than that. It's gonna be more than that if we keep going. It's eventually gonna get to that, and that price is gonna go up.
Right. Has it gone up yet, or have they told us it's going up to 2,500? Or
It went up So it was 13,000 a year and a half ago. It was 12 or 13,000, and then now this, when he came in March, it was 15,000, and I'm sure it's gonna continue to climb.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my guess.
But once a year, we're not keeping up with what's being brought in.
I think that if I
It's
could.
really close.
I think that was last year's thing, but I think that if I could move to where I was cutting down from all the excess that's coming in from out of town and the contractors, I think that I could go potentially a couple years before I tub, if we even need to. How many people are using mulch? You know, how much mulch do we need? And I know there's enough there for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But if I could use that mulch for 2 or 3 years instead of grinding every year, that's saving me money.
But the rate we're going now with the contractors using the site, it's going to be at least once a year.
I could spend $15,000 right now. Yeah.
Okay, it's ready again.
Yeah.
You've already spent it this year. Okay. Okay.
So the other question is, does the council want to look at, again, fining, or is, for future, they want to get that in place potentially, or is the illegal dumping good enough to find somebody as a contractor going out there?
Well, if they dump on our property, it's still illegal dumping, isn't it?
Yes.
If they're not permitted to,
Yeah, because
Dump
that's not
inside
a
the
dump
gate?
area outside of the gate.
I mean, we allow residents and that's all we allow.
Right, so technically, if a contractor goes there right now, would that be correct, John, that we could find them under the other ordinance?
Depends on the proof we have. Depends on the proof we have.
Right,
Well,
right.
aside
The
from that,
picture we've
if they
got
do it, if they do
right
it,
now,
Yeah.
that particular contractor was going to buy 4 acres next to our dumping site and have his own private dumping site because we'd already had the conversation about the bigger dump. But he decided not to spend the money, and he's backed in with a 20-foot load.
Right, so if we have proof, can we find that person under
we
the
prob-
current ordinance for illegal dumping?
We'd want Joe or somebody to testify that that trailer that you can see the side of with the name on is full of big logs and brush.
So if that does what we need it to do, or does the council need to look at another ordinance?
I don't think you
Specific.
need another ordinance. I mean,
Okay.
It's an illegal dump. No matter
Okay,
What is the fine?
who's doing it. Well, it could be anywhere from $50 to $500 if you want.
okay.
And if it's multiple offenses, you can bump it
we should just do it.
to $750.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion points or questions for Joe?
Will you make sure and get something updated as far as signage goes? So
Yeah.
that-
I can make it happen tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Joe.
it. Next up is Sheri Shulmier. Did I say your name right? Okay. I believe you're requesting a refund
Yeah,
for a tote.
yeah, that's the main purpose, and I'm only here because Doug said this is my next step. I've talked to everybody, was quite, and I think everybody, I don't know if you got my materials, but read it, so I don't have to retell the story to save time. But there was serious lack of signing for no parking starting during the special event. I think some more information that I got that I haven't already put into the paperwork is on my way home. I went back downtown and took pictures. I'm like, why did they have to close the town square during lunch rush instead of a little bit later? And everyone said there's a schedule to keep. I thought, what is this big schedule that had to be kept, that they didn't have any signs up, it had no barricades up, let people come and park, and then towed cars away when there's no signing on site. The town does wonderful. I don't know if it's called an insert in the water bill, I have no idea, but anytime there's something special, I get this color sheet of paper that tells me that I have some rules I have to follow for a certain time frame. Very helpful. Nothing like that happened for this. Other people at the same restaurant and on the street and around that it happened to were upset also. So I put on there the Tale of Two Cities because, you know, I love being in Fairfield. I'll get emotional about it. I lived in Florida for a while, and, you know, grumpy people, road rage every day. It's terrible. I've loved it here, but this was very disappointing to me that people are telling me it happens every year. Why? I saw little signs. I went over to the courthouse. I'm like, who do I talk to? I've talked to every agency in Fairfield I can think of, but I saw little signs for Thursday nights for the summer concert series. No parking starting on this day and this time. Signs. There were no signs for RAGBRAI. Going home that night after I went to the square, they wrote chalk numbers in the parking spots and put up, I could see one like little pop-up tent. Happened to be near the place I had parked my car that they had to tow my car out of the way for, which I probably missed by 3 minutes. Anyway, it's, as you can tell, it's a small amount. You know, the numbers on here, it's $80 for me. But I can't buy food or medicine without that money. I had to pay it to get my car back to go to work. And my city let me down by not having notices that I am used to looking at. And then I call the sheriff, I call the police, I call the courthouse. I come here, I talk to Doug. Everybody tells me, not my job, not my problem. I know it happens every year and we could do better. Well, our taxes here, and you know, I don't mind paying them. We pay them for a reason, to have good services from our city. Iowa taxes are in the top 3rd highest in the nation. Fairfield, Jefferson County are high in Iowa. I would expect some proper services for our taxes. So I still don't know if this is the right place to ask for a refund for a predatory tow, because nobody's been able to tell me where is the proper place to go. However, I wanted to express extreme disappointment in my city. And we could make a lot of money from RAGBRAI and wouldn't have so many problems. But when we mess it up every year by people not being informed, by citizens not being informed, by out-of-towners coming in to spend money in our town, not being informed, we kind of had this discussion right before I came up here. Close it and don't inform the people. You know, I hope before you fine people, you tell them in advance so they don't get fined without it being told in advance a rule has changed. So anyway, that's my request. I don't know if I'm in the right place. I'm trying to keep to my 3 minutes. If you have more questions, I brought...
Sherry, do you live downtown?
Do I live downtown?
Yeah.
No, I live
Okay.
on 2nd Street.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you had driven your car downtown?
Yeah, for lunch.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
drive up and down 2nd Street. I work at the university. I drive every day. Saw
Yeah,
the
yeah.
barricades laying down
And-
day after day, but never saw
There were
any
no parking signs on the square at all, right?
None. When I went back that night,
It doesn't matter about that
Oh,
night. But when you
okay.
parked your car, there was no parking sign.
no, and the road was
All right.
open. There was many cars
And what was
there.
the cost of the tow?
They, instead of $125, they only charged me $80.25.
I'd make the motion that we refund her $80.25 for the towing charges.
Okay, is there a second?
How many cars were towed? Do you know?
Do you know, Doug, how many cars were towed?
I do not know, but the chief
Do you
might
know,
know.
Chief?
No? Yeah.
7.
7.
So, yes.
7 vehicles? And we do have Terry Baker and Melanie. Can you speak to any signage? Either one of you?
I can speak to some of it.
First, let me ask
Do
this
you
question.
mind?
Miss,
On the
Miss,
spot where she was parked is where the question
And I
is.
have a,
Was there signage there for no parking? Yes or no?
well, a question, I'm not sure I understand it. When did you park downtown, ma'am?
I leave work, I don't know the exact minute, but I know
Mhm.
the time frame. I leave work at noon for lunch, went home, got my husband about 12:10.
12:10 on what day again?
Thursday, the day before RAGBRAI.
12:10. And where'd you park again?
The El Paso Tex-Mex, and then it was like 3 stores down by, just past the tree, so in a parking spot on the north side of Broadway.
Near the El Paso Tex-Mex
Uh-huh.
restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody
Yeah.
coming in from out of town would have thought the square is open.
I'm asking her the question, please
Yeah.
let her answer.
I'm just-
So you parked near El Paso Tex-Mex
Correct,
on that side of the street
on the north side of Broadway, yes.
around noon? 12:30?
Well, 12:20, because I went home, got my husband, then we were actually eating to avoid the RAGBRAI problem on Friday.
On
So we were eating
Thursday, on Thursday, 20.
Yeah, yeah.
And when do you believe your car was towed?
I have the timestamps
Yeah.
of it, but I don't know, their timing is weird, but
Yeah.
I came out, I paid my bill at 1:03, and people told me they'd just taken my car.
Okay.
So I missed it, but all the people going out are like, where's our cars and what's going on? We asked officers on the scene, they're like, we told the business owners yesterday, or somebody went around and told business owners. That's not a normal way to inform.
I'm interested in hearing what they have to, Ms.
Yeah.
Baker said, but my final question is, you said you didn't see a sign that you would recognize, or a sign that you normally get used to seeing? Are you saying you didn't see any sign?
There was 0 signs.
0 signs?
0 signs. I went back later that evening and was just walking around, and I was reading the RAGBRAI poster, and down on the bottom, there was a tiny little paragraph mentioning the parking was gonna change on Thursday.
And when were the barricades put up? Anybody? Melanie? Terry? Whoever knows?
Thursday afternoon.
We were waiting for some volunteers to put the barricades up. We were very short-staffed, so, because we did have, I guess, the city dropped them off and then expected, I think, the volunteers to put them up. So I don't know exactly when they were put up.
Okay.
Terry, did we make the signs that were posted no parking, or did RAGBRAI give us those?
One's on 4th Street?
So I was the, Danae and I were the information chairs, and so I was actually in charge of the signs that went on 4th Street. So, but that was because of the different chairs that we were all assigned to for RAGBRAI. That's why I think it's important to designate what was city responsibility versus RAGBRAI responsibility. And as Terry said, you know, this, there was nobody assigned to putting up signs on the square. Your ordinance, however, that you passed, basically gave the committee the ability to shut down any street whenever they wanted to, without notice.
Right, but they didn't shut down the square at the time that she was parking. The barriers were on the ground. They weren't blocking the square, right?
You know, I would have to, I didn't.
Well,
bring
she
the
got her car into the square without having to go around a barrier, so it must have not been blocked, right?
We also went to every business.
Well, I know that, but
To tell them we're in the process of towing, including the restaurant she was at. Day before, and we were out there, several people came out, we only had to tow 4 vehicles that day. I'm sorry, 3 vehicles that day. The next day we had to tow 4, the day of RAGBRAI.
You know, and what your ordinance says as far as the amount of notice that people are required to be given for closing down for RAGBRAI, I would have to pull that actual ordinance. But the RAGBRAI ordinance that this council passed gives pretty loose abilities for things to be done.
Getting it done.
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
Right, we could do it, but it doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Are we clear that is there anybody who can state that there was notice there? Or I'm understanding there wasn't notice. There was no sign. Is that
I'm
true?
not aware of any.
There was no sign?
Well, she's right about the poster. Every one of the businesses all the way around the perimeter of the square, including my own, where there was a poster, there was a paragraph that you're going to be closing the street for 24 hours. And it's one of those oddities, they come through, and when it's a pass-through for one day and we pass an ordinance, by the time you do the things that usually are required for our ordinances, which is notice, opportunity for 3 readings and to be heard, it doesn't work.
All I'm saying is,
Period.
was a typical driver, would they have seen the notice? Would they have seen it? Would they have seen the sign?
Yeah.
And I'm getting the answer, no. They wouldn't have seen it.
No. Photograph? No.
So Terry, what can you add? And then we have a motion on the floor. We'll go back to that.
So what we did is a couple of things. We started out a couple weeks in advance of RAGBRAI putting out information to the public. We did it in the newspaper. We had several notifications on the radio station. We also created a frequently asked questions flyer that was posted at every business downtown, and was also posted at the door of every residence area that was in the downtown to make sure people were aware of that. That was also something we did digitally, and we had it on social media, both in the RAGBRAI group, the Fairfield, Iowa group. Chamber of Commerce also put that out in their newsletter frequently. We also had the Chamber of Commerce had many volunteers that actually went around for 4 days. They had a flyer that was put on all the cars in the downtown. Twice a day, they went around and put these on the cars that said there will be no parking starting at this time and that you will be towed. That happened for 4 days. So that was our hope, was to catch as many people as possible, and I was actually quite impressed with how many of the local residents who live in the downtown actually got their vehicles moved in ahead of time. The Fairfield RAGBRAI website also had that information, and we held 2 town hall meetings where we passed that information along. Even though those weren't very well attended, we did try to summarize those meetings and get that out into the public, particularly through the newspaper.
And it was on the city's website, and city staff also called the apartment owners in the downtown area.
Then I also know that the businesses, we went around to all the businesses in the downtown area, letting them know what was going to be happening, please inform their customers. And then I know that starting at about 11 o'clock on that Thursday, there were people, our volunteers, going around to the businesses, giving them a courtesy warning that this was going to start happening. And that lasted for about a couple hours, that they went around talking to the different businesses.
But at that point, we did not have barricades up, it sounds like.
The barricades were there in the
Lying
downtown,
down.
but not up. We were bringing in trucks, we were bringing in flatbeds, we were bringing in vendor trucks, and we're also getting cars out. So I think that was the kind of the feeling like, oh, we still need this traffic to keep moving, so they weren't up yet.
Yeah, okay, great. Sarah, this isn't normally, if you have something to add in fact for this?
I'm married to her.
Oh, okay, great.
And I can tell you that the people in the restaurant, the manager, had nobody told me this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And afterward, I talked with the chief about it, and he said that you have this issue where people get towed every time there's a RAGBRAI. There ought to be some thought given to preventing the situation from reoccurring in future years. I noticed while I was down there, there were 5 ATVs with the guys with the traffic colors on them, driving around. Now, what if you put one of those at each corner of the square and said, you can't park here today?
Yeah.
But
Okay,
there
so
was
that's for future.
There was
Yeah.
no human interaction until we walked out of the restaurant.
Okay.
And one thing that I would suggest is the EMS system, that when you dial 911, and in other cities, if there's a traffic hazard, they use that to do that.
Sure.
Why don't you do that, which would hit everybody's cell phones? We don't get the newspaper.
Yeah.
We live down a 900 block. We saw no signs around there. Nobody knocked on our door.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
And I don't use Facebook, I don't listen to the radio, I know I work a lot.
Yeah.
And so I looked for the normal methods, I'm informed of something. The signs on 4th Street were perfect. Very clear, very easy to read while being in my car, thinking about putting my car someplace.
Okay.
So there was just nothing downtown.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor from Mr. Flournoy to refund the towing of $80.25, I believe is the amount. Again, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Kness. Any further discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh. I do have one question. I'm just kind of curious, when we shut down other areas of the square or other areas of town, do we have protocol? And I don't know, Chief, if you could speak to this, or Melanie, if we have general, like, no parking signs, like, what do we normally do? Or, is this, and I know, RAGBRAI doesn't happen every year, so it's an unusual situation. So I'm just kind of curious, though, what our standard procedure is.
It's
If we have
every time right comes through, there's always 2 or 3 that call either you folks or my office to say they were unaware rag was coming in. And there's just no way to reach everybody, and
Right.
we still have to. You know, the staff was overwhelmed that day. They're upset because the barricades weren't up right away. There just was nobody. We were answering emergency calls before and after.
I guess I was speaking more about like when we have the classic car show, or you know, like how
Usually
we
they come, but it's the same thing the Rag Bride Committee did. They
Yeah.
came in front of you and got special permission. We usually
Right.
can't tow off the square without the elected officials' permission.
Right.
So, Dave, the one thing I will say is most of our events are not on a schedule such as Ragbri that we're shutting them down and we're setting up right away. You know, the classic car show, they're normally a Saturday during the day, so if barricades go up Friday afternoon, that if somebody doesn't move, we don't have to tow them right that minute.
Right.
So there's normally not the time crunch of, you know, and the police and the officers needed to tow at that point, because then come the next morning, they're directing traffic and dealing with the Ragbriders. So we normally don't have a lot of events where the timing sets up like this. There's a little more wiggle room. The only thing I can compare it to is, you know, the snow removal and the street sweeping, which is a more reoccurring event, and we have signs, lots of signs. We have lots of signs in our downtown.
So someone coming down 34 on a cross-country trip and they decided to stop in Fairfield for lunch on Thursday, they would have had their car towed because they would have pulled in, not seen any indication that anything was going on, not seeing any indication that there was no parking allowed. They would have seen.
Well, they would have seen a lot of porta potties. No, seriously, they would have seen a lot of porta potties.
I mean,
so what? It means something is going on. That's what I'm trying to say.
Barriers laying on the ground. Nothing was going on now. In the future, maybe, but not at the moment.
We may want to consider, I know most cities that still have parking meters, they have like a hood that can go over the parking meter that you can put, like, no parking starts X amount. So we might want to consider some like tent signs or something like that to set around the square in multiple places so that we can specify.
In Cedar Rapids last year, they had just that.
Yep.
They had signs up on the street where I parked. And they actually came into the restaurants before they towed anybody to announce, okay, if your car is parked out here, we're gonna have a parade here in the next 2 hours. We're gonna tow your car. Would you please come out and move it, because we don't want to tow your car.
Okay, so we have lots of solutions for the next time. Yeah. So
Well,
I don't want to solve that problem right now. Let's solve this problem,
I
which
guess you
is.
just don't want to set us up for something, you know, like it's contrary to what we have done, or, you know, create more confusion. That's the only reason why I was asking clarifying questions. So thanks,
Okay,
Nolan.
so let's. I think we've got enough facts, and there's certainly, again, there's things that we can do. I think there were 2 or 3 good suggestions for next time. We can take notes, remember those things for the committee, and so let's go ahead and call the roll.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Esty.
Yes, I also just want to say thank you to everybody who did so much work at Ragbri. I don't want you guys to think that we're neglecting to thank you all.
Absolutely.
Ham.
I want to say no.
Rowe.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yeah, I would have thanked the Ragbri Committee. I know they were short-staffed.
Yeah.
My company was involved in it. I know there were 2 people running around, and they had work for 7 people, so they did a tremendous job. In this case, I think it would have been, based on what you're telling me, Mr. Shulmier, there could have been more notice. Probably should have been more notice. We'll learn next time and make sure we'll have more residents volunteer and people are covered like that. So, in this case, while thanking the Ragbri Committee, I think that you're entitled to your refund. So I would vote yes.
Okay, so that is a 6-1 vote. It passed. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I don't know what to do next, and I want to thank you all, and also second the Reg Committee does a lot, and our street signs were big enough.
Yeah,
So-
they did a great job.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to get every single thing right when something of this magnitude.
And we let it slip in our ordinance too without giving proper notice, so that's something for us to consider.
So that'll come through just claims next round, correct? Yeah. So expect something in a couple weeks.
Okay, mail, I don't.
Yeah.
This is my first meeting ever, and I'm 67 years old, so I don't know all this stuff.
Yeah, so that our next council meeting, they'll have a check that will get approved, and then that will get mailed to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Faith Reeves, Sustainability Coordinator, EJCCG grant. You gonna educate us on that?
Yeah. Great. Hello,
3 minutes.
and good evening, council. Thank you. Nice. It's nice to be able to share this opportunity with you. This is a EPA, Environmental Justice Community Change Grant. And so the Community Change Grant is a grant program. It's coming out of the IRA funding, the Inflation Reduction Act funding. And this particular grant is oriented specifically around disadvantaged communities. There's an opportunity for 40% of these funds to be directly awarded to disadvantaged communities. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner there, that's Fairfield with the turquoise and orange color. And Fairfield does qualify as a disadvantaged community. So we are eligible for this particular grant. The nation has already, across the nation here, 21 different communities have already applied for and have been awarded this particular grant. It's a large grant. We're looking at a $10 to $20 million grant. This grant is, the particular track that we're looking at is oriented towards infrastructure around community resiliency, community engagement, community governance, community participation. So again, $20 million potentially, and this has no match. It is a bit of a time crunch. The closing window for this application is going to be November 21st. It is feasible. We have enrolled in and have been participating. We, a small group of us with the RAC management team and other members of the RAC, and then we have also consulted with Doug, Melanie, Weston, Brett around this particular grant. We have had one sit down with that larger group. So this particular grant, again, has that short time window. It is a rolling application. So 21 different communities have been awarded their grants. They haven't received their funds yet. They'll receive those in the fall. They are expecting for this larger grant to have up to 150 potential awards in that $10 to $20 million range. Again, no local match needed or in-kind match needed for this particular grant. The grant does have a lot of support, and so we are enrolled in the Indina technical support process, and so we are meeting with subject matter experts around the areas of focus that we're preliminarily looking at. Right now, we have 3 areas of focus that we'd like to see worked on with the grant. So housing. We know that we have some substandard housing in our community. Most of that's going to land on the west side, but really that whole area there is what we're looking at, trying to assist with. We are orienting towards, it is necessary per our current understanding to orient towards owner-occupied homes, homes that are of structural integrity, where it makes sense to do retrofits. These are energy efficient and healthy home retrofits. And so it's potentially new windows, new doors, upgrades on insulation. If the roof is bad, the roof could be replaced. If the siding is bad, the siding could be replaced. It's also oriented towards updated HVAC. It's updating appliances, different types of retrofits like that. Energy efficiency and healthy home. Our second area of focus is a energy resilient community resource center. We have a couple buildings in our community that are still structurally quite sound, but are great value to us. They are wonderful assets, but they need attention and they need some funds to bring them back up to good standing. This particular building is one of those. In order to do that for the city, there would be some upfront cost. If the city was going to tackle this, Being that it's an underused building, underutilized but not abandoned building, this grant would cover the assessments, whether that's structural assessment or lead or asbestos assessment. It would cover the abatement or the remediation. It would cover the remodeling and the ADA compliance updates for the building. And this would be, our hopes would be that a community resource center with resilient energy would be the outcome. And so we would submit to have solar, batteries, and generators for the building. So it would be resilient post-event if we needed to have a space that could be utilized post-event if the power was down and we had community needs around cooling or heating or keeping medicines cold, keeping individuals who have respirators in a space where they could have their needs met. It is in close proximity to the community we'd like to serve. Ideally, we see this community resource center being an extension of what exists currently, but adding in some additional life services opportunities, maybe some additional educational opportunities, disaster preparedness, skill building, different skill building, workforce training, things of that sort. Our third area of focus is indoor and outdoor air quality monitoring. Those first two areas of focus, the housing and the Resilient Energy Resource Center, or Resiliency Hub, those are one of the requirements. Climate Action Strategy 1. You have to fulfill on that. This would take care of requirement 2, pollution reduction strategy. Indoor and outdoor air quality monitoring. We, on the west side, all of those houses are in an industrial zone. We have older homes that are going to have bad insulations, roofs that might have mold issues or radon issues. So we can do indoor air quality monitoring, and for the indoor air quality issues, we can provide filtration and remediation of mold if it's needed. Outdoor air quality would just be an acknowledgement, awareness for us, just keeping an eye on our air quality in general. And if you don't mind, I'd love to have Weston, if he's still here, just come and speak to the potential benefit that this grant could bring for the city. Weston, when it comes to housing, if you want to speak to the Roosevelt building, that would be great as well.
In the area that we're talking about, there's lots of houses that have multiple problems, but things like a lot of roofs over there that are not to the point where they have holes in them yet, but there's no granules left on the shingles. Shingles are all turned. Lots of problems that are going to have with water and stuff like that. Siding that's bad, windows that are bad. If those houses continue to keep going downhill, they're going to be houses that are going to be earmarked by me, and we're going to be looking at 657A processes down the road for those. So I see this as a great opportunity for that area, and the ability for those houses to be rehabbed at least enough to give them, another generation or two of use out of them. The Roosevelt building needed lots of attention. The city is going to have to put a lot of money forward to repairing the roof and stuff like that to make sure that we don't have a building that we have to tear down later on. So I think this is a great grant, a great way to get those repairs taken care of, and for us not to have to shoulder that cost later on as a community.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Do you know how the funds are managed, so to speak? Like, you've got this private home that does need work, new roof, new siding, windows, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
How is that managed?
So,
do you know yet? Do you understand
I don't
that?
know the full details, but
Okay.
my understanding currently is the way the grant is structured. This is centered around community, and so you need a partnership as your two primaries. You're going to have your lead applicant, which can be a local government, a local tribal government, institution of higher learning, or a community-based organization, a CBO that's a nonprofit. Any of those can be the lead applicant. I'm asking the city if they would consider being the lead applicant in this current scenario. Your partner will be another community-based organization. And so ideally, you would have a community-based organization that is already doing the type of work you'd like to see being done in the community. You would want that particular CBO that you partner with to have those really strong relationships that maybe the city doesn't already have. Those strong relationships working in that community and being able to rally that community. Underneath those two, that partnership, you'll have ideally anywhere from 2 to 5 collaborating entities. Additional CBOs that are nonprofits doing similar work in the community. So this could be Habitat. This could be the Lord's Cover. It could be the Well. And so these are collaborating entities. The 2 primary entities will do the lead applicant will be responsible for the management of an EPA grant. So they will have the overall responsibility there. They're kind of an equal partnership though. The community-based organization could do that if they have the skill base to do it. But you want that to be really well known. So you'll have the same bid process, procurement process that you would for any other grant that you're used to, a triple bid process. You'll have sub-grantees. So your partner can be a sub-grantee. Any of your collaborating entities can be sub-grantees, and they can coordinate if you'd like. They could coordinate the contractors, or you and your partner can coordinate the contractors to do the work. Just depends on the stack that you build. Mm-hmm. If you've got Habitat as one of your collaborating entities, they have the skill set, the ability to qualify homeowners. They have all of that that infrastructure, that skill set infrastructure, that they may be one that you choose. So you would choose your partners well to help you in the process. There are funds, 20% of this grant can be used for indirect costs. And so that will be project managers, project analysis, analysts, financial, officers to help you manage this. There is a short time window for this grant. Once awarded, you have 3 years currently, 3 years to finalize all of your projects. And so it would be a tight ship. It would have to be really tightly ran. There is, along with the, climate action strategy, the pollution reduction strategy, you have community governance plan, compliance, readiness study to make sure that you are able to fulfill on what you anticipate with these projects.
And that 20% could also be used for administrative costs too, because there are like reporting requirements for federal grants that can be quite onerous, I think, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And how do you see your role in all of this?
Currently, I see myself as legwork right now, just helping to get the partnerships built, finding out who are the interested community-based organizations, helping to pull the grant data together. We are currently interviewing grant writers. We have had 3 interviews with grant writers. We have a pair of grant writers that work together who have experience with federal grants. We want to make sure we're picking a grant writer that has experience with federal grants, reviewing the NOFO for us right now, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and looking at the Fairfield Forever Plan, looking at the strategies that we've put together as a project map, and just seeing if it makes for a good application. They're going to get back to us soon with that information, and we can share that. But yeah, it's a time-sensitive thing. We want to move forward quickly.
When were you first made aware of it?
We learned about this grant in February, but we, as the RAC, were not ready to move forward with any projects yet. We just didn't have a mind for projects at the time. We started putting kind of full court press on feasibility. If this is actually, are we a good candidate for this grant? About a month and a half ago, when we started reviewing the NOFO pretty seriously, signing up for technical assistance. It took time to get technical assistance. And now that we've had, 5 or so technical assistants, the subject matter expert meetings, we've gotten thumbs up from everyone saying there's time, it's feasible, move forward.
Just out of curiosity, are the grant writers local?
In Iowa, we have been interviewing grant writers in Iowa, but we're not restricted to that.
I understand that November 21st is the deadline.
Yes.
And you can submit an application, and if it's declined, they tell you why, and you have the opportunity to resubmit.
We would love to have this application in October, early October, if we can, so that we would be in the window of time to get it resubmitted.
So the final application has to be in by November 21st. If you submit one, you don't, and it's after that, you don't have the opportunity to resubmit after the 21st.
I don't know about revisions. I know that they're not, of course, accepting anything after
Sure.
the 21st, but I don't know about revisions.
Okay.
Okay. You said the RAC wasn't like ready to take on projects. Do you guys receive the funds? Who receives the funds?
The lead applicant will receive the funds.
Oh,
And,
okay.
And the partnership. That's the partnership, the lead applicant and their statutory partner, they handle the funds.
They co-manage the funds?
They co-manage the funds, but the lead applicant, per my understanding, is the primary responsible party. And so it should go through them.
So if there's cost overrun, the lead applicant is responsible for those.
Is the grant
The grant
approval
would be.
by federal, or is it administered through the state?
It's federal, it's EPA.
So it's directly federal.
It's in the wording.
What does it say there? When you say cost overruns, do you mean someone bid 10,000, but they ended up spending 11,000? That would just come out of the grant money, not the city's funds. Inappropriate
The
spending.
proper expenditure of these
Improper
funds
expenditure.
and will bear liability for unallowable costs,
Right.
sorry.
So that would just like be any other grant that we've done, if you spend the money inappropriately,
Right.
like the CB, the garden grant that we did. or-
Yeah, the community development.
Then you'd be liable for it because you allowed that expense to occur.
Is there a cap on who can be granted X amount of dollars for their private improvements?
No, I don't think so. There's not a cap, say, for a homeowner, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking paralleling to a program that the county had for several years in some small towns where the state was behind it, but they had a low to moderate income housing improvement program up to $12,500.
Yeah.
In some places, it really didn't work to even put a new roof on a house. If we've got 400 substandard houses in town, you're going out for what, several $100,000 in the grant?
20
It's
million.
10 to 20 million. And so, we haven't started the budgeting yet. We need to actually look at, we need to really work that through to figure out how much we can put for each, primary strategy there, each area of focus. We'd love to see anywhere from 10 to 30 homes receive assistance, but we need to make sure that those homes are worth the money that's put into them. And so, that's an assessment that I can't make. But there's no cap on any one particular aspect of the project.
How are the focus areas determined, and who determined them?
So the Resilient Action Committee is, it's the 4 of us, 5 of us, plus Don Holting, who we've had some, great interactions with on the RAC, and also reviewing what he's, doing in the community on the west side around housing. We've had a chance to take a look there. It's obvious in the rural housing assessment that was done in 2023 that we do have a lot of vacant homes and some substandard homes. I personally worked on the west side for many, many years, over a decade. And so I am very familiar with the homes, and I just see that it's an obvious issue. I think and it's in the Fairfield Forever plan, that we would like to see a home improvement program brought forward. So that was just a given. The Resiliency Hub, because the RAC is working around community connection, we're looking for a hub, a place, a connection point where we can bring, whether it's satellite offices of the agencies in the community, those CBOs that are already doing the good work that they're doing, bringing together those CBOs to potentially be able to work together or have, classroom space, course space, activity space, space for more engagement and just connection.
I guess maybe the heart of my question is, if the RAC knew about this grant opportunity in February and you knew that the city was going to be the primary applicant, I guess I don't understand.
We didn't know the city was going to be the primary applicant.
Well, at some point, I guess I'm curious as to why the city wasn't more involved in determining the focus areas if they're going to be ultimately our funds.
They're not set in stone. The focus areas are not set in stone. And
but do you understand
Yeah.
like the heart of my question?
Yes.
So I guess I'm just kind of curious why that has come about that way.
I think it's because we didn't know that the city was going to be the primary applicant, because it can be two community-based organizations. When we first got started with this, we didn't zero in on the Roosevelt Building or city properties. And then once I went and did a tour of the community with Weston, I knew that housing was going to be very much a part of it. And then it just really started to make sense that, of course, the city would be the better of any choice. We were, we were looking potentially towards Area 15, where, is who's going to have the capacity, the time. We didn't understand all of the details that the capacity could be built with the grant. And I know that the city is stretched for staff and funds, and it didn't necessarily come to me right away that it was going to be an easy thing for the city to take on.
Right.
It's not going to be easy, but
Right.
there's funds to build capacity.
Yeah. It's great that you found it too. It seems like a great opportunity potentially.
And again, the strategies aren't set in stone. These are just what we've kind of zeroed in on, and we want to make for a good application. And we also want to have a win-win.
What would be the risks to the city to be the primary applicant?
I would think that the misuse of funds, that would be the primary risk. And so, really being on top of the due diligence of managing the grant.
And so that becomes the challenge.
Yeah.
I would,
Well-
we haven't heard from these two right here, but obviously I think we need to. I think they need to express, is this something I can take on? Does this mean additional hire to manage something like this? A part-time hire?
It would absolutely have to be additional hire, at least for the 3-year period. I don't think the EPA would award the city the grant if you didn't plan for, project managers for each area focus, whatever it is, an analyst and someone to help with financial management.
They would be paid for by the grant.
Okay.
Yeah, 20% up to, right?
Up to.
Yeah. Okay.
Indirect costs.
Indirect costs.
All righty. So, anything else to add to that? And then we'll move on to the action items, because that's the next thing.
Yeah, no, just the timing. I think my clicker ended, but I think I've expressed the urgency. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to resolution, action items, and ordinance. So the first action item is consideration of city involvement in this grant. So council, what's your pleasure?
I guess city involvement to what extent? What does that mean?
The motion would be.
To be the primary grant?
Just be the primary
Grant.
applicant. That's the only city involvement that is
Right, would the
on this
city,
action.
would the city agree to be the lead applicant?
Okay.
I think it's agreeing to more than that, isn't it? If you're the lead applicant and the application is accepted and the money is received, then that,
Management of the.
all those other things
management,
follow.
yeah.
All those other things follow.
And then a statutory partnership with the chosen CBO.
Who's the chosen one?
No, there is no chosen one,
Not yet?
not yet.
How's that determined?
Well, if the city is the lead applicant, then we.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you wanna come up to
Sorry.
the microphone, please?
If the city is the lead applicant, then it's now a collaborative, like, we've just been doing legwork, we've just been doing research, we've just been trying to build something to bring to you. And so if you're gonna be the lead applicant, then we have to decide who is the statutory partner, and what are the areas of focus.
City decides that?
Well, we would love to have advisement.
We being?
We, the group that has been working on building the grant kind of resource docs and application material. We would love to, be a part of that process. The RAC is not a nonprofit, so
Right.
we can't be a collaborating entity, but we can do legwork and we can, build a great application.
So I think if the city wants to take it on, maybe we do a subcommittee of council members and then you finalize what they're proposing.
Okay, just one more question I forgot. Who prepares the application? Who would be preparing it?
The grant writer,
Grant writer.
yeah,
Well-
we would feed them as much as we possibly could, but the grant writer would prepare the application.
We'd like to hire professional grant writers,
Who?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to hire
whoever
them.
we decide to hire.
Who's
That's-
paying, who'll be paying them?
That's action item 2.
That's actually.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh,
But it's a federal grant, large grant, people who have experience, who've written grants before,
right,
is the idea. I mean, no one here can do it.
right, right. So the city's obligation is both be, we're asking whether we be the primary applicant, and I think also whether we pay grant writers. Is that correct?
Separate
Separate.
motion.
But it is an ask, it's part of it, isn't it?
It is
It's a
part of
separate
the
motion,
ask.
I get it, but I suspect you want one and then you want the other.
Yes.
Okay.
In each of the 3 years, then, we will also need to have somebody that is contracted to be the grant administrator. Isn't that the way it'll work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a city employee,
And special
unless you
audits.
guys at RAC have a contract with someone like that.
No,
Why would that have to be a city employee? Because they're administering
Well,
because the
it
grant is
wouldn't-
coming
We're the
through.
applicants.
It wouldn't have to.
That would be a good question for Carrie.
it
But-
could potentially, be Area 15 or Pathfinders, if they had capacity for it.
She
So-
talked about hiring, 5 people maybe for this grant. For
We've
different-
done this different times with federal grants. When we had the UDAG 40 years ago, it went on for about 10 or 15 years. And I believe FIDA was the administrator that was subcontracted. I'm sure there's been other federal grants that have had administrators that weren't necessarily in-house. But
It would make sense, I can't say, but perhaps maybe because it could be supported in-house, it might make sense to have it all in-house. I don't know.
So one question before we'll take these individually, but the next action item is the grant referral to the Ways and Means Committee. What, are we thinking that?
That's a complicated issue that I have to address that separately. That's in
Well-
there because of something else that we discovered on Friday.
Right, but do they want to do the first one without knowing the second one? That's what I think.
Oh, I'd like to know the second one too.
Yeah, I think if we could discuss the second one a little bit, then maybe it'd bring more clarity to the first one. So do you mind, Doug,
No.
giving us clarity on the second,
No.
what the second question issues are?
Do you mind if I
Go for it.
Guys,
address
I
it?
hate to butt in like this, but I do need to leave.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to miss out on voting on this particular grant. I think it's a good idea. So I hope the conversation goes well. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matthew. Appreciate it.
So Wednesday, when we met with Doug and Weston and Chief Thomas and Melanie, we thought at that moment that the testing of the Roosevelt building and abatement would have to be done before the grant could be executed, and that the cost would fall on the city. And that might be on the order of $40,000. But on Friday morning, we had a Zoom call with a subject matter expert who told us that those costs could all be rolled into the grant. So it wouldn't be a cost burdened by the city for testing of asbestos, lead, or for remediation,
Or for the structural.
or for the structural analysis of the building. All those costs would be rolled into the grant. But when this was discussed on Wednesday, we didn't know that.
And that's how it got on the agenda.
And that's how it got on the agenda.
Gotcha.
And being referred to Ways and Means, because we thought there might be an expense of that magnitude associated with it.
So this isn't for the grant writing.
It is for the grant writing. The second one would be,
Oh.
the grant writers gave us an estimate of $6,000 to $10,000 for writing the grant.
Can we go back to, so are you saying we'll still have to do the testing prior to receiving the grant?
No, it'll be rolled into the grant. So if the grant's awarded, then all the testing would be included.
Would be after.
Remediation would be
Okay.
included.
Okay.
In fact, plumbing, electricity, a new elevator, a new roof, repair work on the parapets on the roof. Everything you can imagine that would have to be done to that building would be included in the grant.
Okay.
So the cost in the second action item really is the $6,000 to $10,000 to get the grant written. Okay, is that clear?
Right.
Okay.
Which can the city reimburse themselves for that cost out of the grant after it's awarded? I mean, I assume if it's under the 20%, no?
No reimbursements, per my understanding, prior to the grant being awarded.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let's go back to the first action item, which is consideration of city involvement for the EJCCG grant. So that's a community change grant. So you would be saying you want to be the lead applicant, and we would be hiring a grant administrator down the road and choosing partners ultimately.
That's a big ask.
It's a big ask.
My thought is, and I think it has all the earmarks of a wonderful idea, but it's asking a lot of the city to make a decision quickly. I understand there's a time frame, there's a deadline here. I would feel more comfortable as a council member to have some weigh-in by appropriate committee to review this. We were talking about hiring a grant writer and hiring full-time city employees and so forth. All those things make it more complex. So I'd feel more comfortable if this were referred to committee, have them review it in some detail, have a chance to ask you questions with a committee having a chance to prepare for it, and then bring back a recommendation to the council. So I would refer this to the Environmental and Franchise Committee for further review.
Paul, how would you feel about approving it and then taking those steps so that it's approved, but we're not, I mean, if we don't submit the grant, we don't submit the grant. Are we required by law to do something if we pass this?
Well, I think
because so being the primary applicant would be just like the other grants that we've approved. We've authorized the mayor to sign off on an application that someone has written, and the grant goes in. If it's awarded, then we are the primary applicant, and we're responsible just like we are
Because there's still
here.
so many steps after this first one.
Right, there are many steps.
As you stated, like it should go to a committee.
one of the steps is hiring a grant writer.
Right.
Grant writer is paid by the city.
Right.
So if we were to approve consideration of the city involvement as primary applicant, then I think we're agreeing to pay a grant writer.
Not
If
necessarily.
it means that we
We're
can
not?
get, yeah, I mean, if it means you can get $20 million into our community, it's a no-brainer.
The committee's prepared to go out and raise the money if the city doesn't provide the $10,000.
Is that what we're estimating the cost for a grant writer?
That's what the grant writers estimated, 6 to 10.
Up to 10.
6 to 10.
6 to 10.
But to save the time and energy that they would have to redirect themselves to do that fundraising, and they can direct themselves towards working on the grant, I think that's more efficient.
Are you suggesting that would come out of lost funds? Again, I guess we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but ultimately that's probably where it would come. Unless it just
Usually
came-
where we take these things from.
Yeah.
I see this as going a long way to solve a lot of problems that we've been talking about for years in housing. So, to me, it's a no-brainer.
It is a big ask, but
It is a
if we
big
pull it
ask.
off, it's a huge payout.
But it's a lot of money.
There's no
right?
matching funds
Yeah.
involved.
Okay, and here's the other side of it, is that very few communities our size have the resources in terms of the personnel, the passion that people have, the kind of time they're willing to commit on their own time to make something like this happen. You won't find that anywhere in Iowa, I don't think, except Fairfield right now. You might find it somewhere, but I don't know where you would. And the fact that no one in Iowa, in a community our size, does this kind of work speaks volumes that we want to try and do that now. And we can lay the groundwork here. If it's not successful, then we will have learned a lot about how to apply for these kinds of grants and how to get organized and look forward to maybe bigger and better things. I mean, if we did this 10 times and spent $100,000 on grant writing and we're awarded $10 million, that's a no-brainer.
If we did it 10 times,
If we did it 10
spent
times.
$100,000 and awarded any money, it would be a brainer.
Right,
Right, it costs
it'd be
us
a
money.
valuable experience. Every time we do it, it's going to be a learning experience.
I think the city has a lot of valuable experience.
So Judy has a comment.
Yeah, I love the money, the idea of the money coming in and all of that, but we're also looking at the fire station. And I just want to ask, what does that look like, having that running parallel in the build at the same time? Because it's not just this project, it's also this other project that we're looking at moving along during those next 2 to 3 years. And so what is that going to do to our staff also in the loads that they carry? So that's where I'm balancing things, is I want to hear from the ones on staff, because those of us sitting here at council aren't going to be the ones managing that day in, day out. They are.
Yeah, but I guess that's where
fire
we're
station.
talking about hiring someone
Yeah,
for this particular
ideally,
thing.
the staff that we currently have.
But there'll still be, in my
But
view, there's still some oversight from
There
Rebecca
is
and
still
Doug.
some oversight, and that's why I want to be able to hear from them before, and that's why I think going to committee is important, because it's about time as well, and how much more time that's going to require from them, so.
Doug and Rebecca, do you want to speak to any thoughts?
It's a lot, and we started talking about this a couple of weeks ago.
Seriously, I've floated it at a couple of department head meetings, but we weren't serious about really going for it until a month or so ago.
And so there's the larger the amount of the grant, the more scrutiny it's going to have. So there is some risk to the city. Is we make a mistake, and we're going to pay for it. So there is some apprehension. Yes, we don't have the staff to. I think Melanie says it best, that a lot of things that we do, the community's got project fatigue. That we built Highway 1. Now we've got Crow Creek Bridge. We've got the fire station. Now potentially this grant. So there's a lot of logistics. There's a lot of hardworking people. My job is to present the information, not to have an opinion. And so we'll do whatever we need to do. Yes, I actually said, it would be great to have an individual finance director that'd be to oversee some of this. They're going to have staff, because every penny is going to have to be accounted for, and it's audited. And just like the grant that we had downtown, that if something isn't right, and then it puts the city at risk, because we're administering that particular grant. So we're the ones, the council are the ones that have to say yay or nay. And then we have to pass all of those tests that they're going to come back, because they're not just going to write us a $10 or a $20 million check. It's one thing at a time after we've paid for it first. My assumption is.
So I can speak a little bit to that, Doug. When we built the daycare center, the city worked with us to be awarded a CDBG grant for that. And within that, we had to have someone manage that for us. And I'm trying to think who it was. It wasn't Pathfinders.
Area 15.
No.
You had a project manager.
Anyway, there was a project manager, correct. And so there are entities out there that this wouldn't fall on you guys, that we would hire them to do it and make sure that, all of our T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
In fact, the subject matter expert said you'd have 2 or 3 project managers, one for each aspect of the project.
Yep.
So one for the Roosevelt building, one for the housing project, one for air quality control.
Right. Yeah, because the CDBG was funded by federal dollars. So, we had to follow Davis-Bacon wages. We had to pay, we had to follow certain things, and they managed all of that for us.
So that'd be helpful.
Yeah.
My guess is you came before the city on more than one occasion.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think the thing is, it's not that it's a bad idea. It's a good idea, but I just think the city, from my point of view, the city needs some time to review it carefully. That's all. It's August the 12th. I think you would like the application in by October.
October early. Yeah.
October early.
Yeah.
That still gives us
as soon as we can.
Right. That still gives us time, and I think adequate time for the city to carefully consider the matter, to have the committee prepare for a meeting and ask questions that may come up that may not come up tonight, and then make a considered decision or recommendation to the council. We can move forward, I think, with still enough time. So it's still my position. I believe that it's best reviewed by, referred to committee, and then they come back with a recommendation. That's still my motion.
I would say just keeping in mind that we still have to build that partnership, that stack. And so it's hard to reach out to those potential collaborating entities and that potential CPO partner until we know who their partner is. And so everything has just kind of been really tentative, soft inquiries around the community. And so
I would think
So
that some of those.
may I make a suggestion that Ways and Means look at this, because it all has to do with money, and that they come back, they also discuss with you about partners, have a serious discussion about partners, have a serious discussion about projects, and a serious discussion on, are they willing to pay up front for the grant writer? So, and then come back at our next meeting at the end of August with all those suggestions of move forward with all 3 projects, or, you know, other discussion points, any other projects that might come up, the money part of it to pay the grant writer, and potential partners.
Being on Ways and Means, I have no issue or no problem with that. But I would also like to point out that if we don't take the lead in this, they're going to go ahead and follow through with this another way. They're going to have somebody else be the lead. I would rather the city be the lead on this than us on the outside looking in.
That's my preference,
Mhm.
especially since the Roosevelt Center is the core of this whole
Yeah.
idea.
I'm also on Ways and Means, and I'm ready to vote yes on it
Well,
tonight.
I'm on Ways and Means too, so.
So I feel like it's a formality to send it to Ways and Means at this point, so.
Okay. And I just want that out in the
And,
air
well,
to
it doesn't make
discuss.
sense to go forward with it, like, we hatchet it, right? But why not approve it tonight? We're not saying, like, this is happening.
I think it's important that we get the boxes checked and start putting things together.
Then we can
But-
start having the conversations with the 501c3s.
In fact, when we talk to the subject matter experts and we start going into the weeds, they say, no. You'll hear about all that after you get the grant is awarded,
Mhm.
how you do this and how you do that, how
Right.
reports. I asked about reports.
Yep.
She said, no, after you get the grant, then we'll talk about what kind of reports you have
Yeah,
to do.
because we could approve
Because-
this and get down the path, and no community
Right.
organization wants
What
to
they're
take it
looking
on with
for
us.
are people who have passion, who want to do it, who are going to follow through, who are committed to doing the grant as they envision it.
Mhm.
And if they find those kinds of people and they find a partner who is physically responsible, then they're going to say, that looks like an attractive grant applicant. And then we submit the grant. They want to give us, not us, but they want to give the money out. So if they find a good applicant, we're going to submit an application. They're going to review it. And I've had this, my personal experience in writing grants. You give them the grant application, they will review it, and they'll send back to you, okay, item 2, do this. Item 3, you need to have this. You're missing X, Y, and Z. You go and you do those things right away, you get it right back to them, and then they'll check it again. And when they think it's ready to go, then they'll say, pull the trigger on that. That's how I got a competitive grant with the Rotary Foundation, because I went through that process. And I stuck with it.
Out of
I was committed to
curiosity.
getting it done.
Sorry, Don.
And same thing here.
Okay.
We have to commit to doing it. At any time that you feel uncomfortable, the city can pull out as a primary applicant.
Well, how are we gonna get more information to know if we wanna pull out? It's great that you have a lot of information, but like, as somebody who's potentially gonna be part of this, the primary applicant, we feel like we don't have a lot of information.
Exactly.
We weren't involved in this, figuring out what the focus areas were, which I understand are not set in stone.
Right.
But I guess it gives me, I think it's a great opportunity. It just gives me a little bit of pause where it's like, here you go, and just sign off on it and take all the liability without,
Right.
which it
Without
seems
knowing
like
what's in the
that's what
fine
it is.
print.
If you agree to be the primary applicant, then you'll become our partner, and we'll be having that transparent conversations all the time.
Our? Who's we?
He's on the RAC committee.
Oh, okay.
There's 4 of us who have been working on this for the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
But if you become the primary applicant, of course, you're going to be involved in every aspect of it.
Now,
Okay, so I think we have a motion on the floor
true.
to move forward with the first action item.
No, that's not. My motion is to refer to.
What was your motion?
My
I'm
motion
sorry.
is referred to the Environmental and Franchise Committee.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. Sorry. So is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, that motion dies. Okay?
I'll make the motion that the city accept the offer to become the primary applicant
Okay.
for this grant.
Okay, it's been moved by Flournoy to move forward for the city to be lead applicant. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kness. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Okay, that was unanimous.
Barely.
It wasn't a roaring unanimous, but.
Sorry,
I know this is a scary thing, but
Yeah.
you know, wonderful things are scary sometimes, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the city.
Okay, so next action item, consideration of city contribution for this same grant, referral to the Ways and Means Committee.
I'll make a motion to refer to Ways and Means.
Second.
Okay, so moved by Toohill, second by Kness to move this to Ways and Means. Any discussion?
Well, the exact motion is to move the question of whether the city will pay $10,000 for the grant writers to Ways and Means.
Up to $10,000.
Up to $10,000.
Okay,
Just to clarify.
okay, thank you.
Do we get any bids or?
We will have to, yes.
Yeah.
We're just interviewing right now.
Got it, okay.
But yes.
Okay, so it's up to 10,000, this referral to the Ways and Means Committee. So we do have a first and a second, so any other discussion?
Yeah, just to be clear, that would not be rolled into the grant?
My understanding is that the grant writing cannot be a part of this grant, that it cannot be a reimbursable cost.
And that's common with grants, is that they don't reimburse expenses that have already been.
Right.
Before.
Just make sure.
Before submission.
So the public knows. Okay,
Yeah.
I need to know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and so I guess basically what happens is if Ways and Means says, hey, we can't do it, then
We fundraise.
we fundraise. That's ultimately what's gonna happen, okay? So, any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Toohill,
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
So just hope you guys can do that by next meeting to let us know what's gonna happen. So we can put that on the, I guess we'll discuss it next time anyway.
Great.
Just through committee. Okay, great, thank you so much.
I'll look forward to an invite to the Ways and Means. Thank you.
Thanks, Faye.
Great.
Okay. Next action item is consideration of engineering services agreement with French Reneker Associates for resurfacing Adams Avenue. Looks like we have Mr. Pedrick here, thank you.
Yes, I believe this project is in the capital improvements plan. Melanie can correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm filling in for Marcus tonight, so I'm kind of flying by my seat of my pants here a little bit. This is for roughly 6 blocks of overlay on Adams Street from 7th to Main. And it's, at this time, it's proposed to be a 3-inch overlay, and then there would also be ADA sidewalk improvements at all the intersections as a part of this project as well. Anything else you want to say?
So the other thing I say, so about 3 to 4 blocks of Adams is actually in the budget for this coming fiscal year. We are going to have them go ahead and design the whole thing. If bids are favorable, we'll go, we will bid out as much as we have the budget for. But go ahead and design the whole thing so that the profile is good and you have a smooth ride through the intersections. Because we do intend to keep going with Adams all the way to 7th. So that's why the contract is for all the way to 7th, even though the budget year has it broken into the CIP has it broken into 2 separate years. The contract for design is to do it all at once.
And can you go over cost again? So the council knows, the public knows?
Yes, so this agreement is for $36,100, and this is set up as design only. Because of what Melanie said, we do not have any construction-related services in here at this time. So once final design is done and we decide where we are with the budget on construction, then we'll be back to council for a construction-related services agreement. We didn't want to price it now, kind of, at this time that way. And I believe it's, somewhere around $600,000 worth of overlay for all those blocks of street.
Okay. Okay, council, so you're looking at a cost of $36,100.
Move to approve the consideration of engineering services agreement with French Reneker
Okay.
Associates.
Moved by Esti, second by Flournoy. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Esti.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Thank you. Moved, approved unanimously. Next, we will go to consideration of the 2024. This is a one-year standard agreement for professional services with Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly. This has to do with the airport. And so we got Bob and Melanie up there. Maybe you want to just give us a quick.
Yeah, I'll give you a
I mean,
quick
there's
one.
about 3 action items
Yeah,
here
Melanie
related to
Canyon,
them.
We've done this in the past, so that they requires the city and the airport to do a one-year engineering agreement, also a 5-year engineering agreement, and then the third one is just the standard agreement. And the airport board has already reviewed everything and approved it. And every 5 years, we have to open up. FAA requires the city to open up to all engineers, and we only had one applicant, and that was CMT.
Okay.
So the airport's approved it. If she's got anything else,
Yeah.
any questions?
Yeah, no. The 1 year, the first action item, the 1 year is actually, we're catching up on a lot of paperwork with CMT, and it is for work that occurred last December, helping us apply for the grants that for the fiscal year that we are just started. And so the 1 year has actually already occurred, but we are tying up some loose ends. And then the 5 year is for the next 5 years moving forward. And then the third item, like you said, is the retainer for any future work that's happening out there after the selection that occurred in February. Any actual engineering services that would occur during that 5 year period would be a separate contract, but this is more or less locking them in for that 5 year period so that they know that they were officially selected for the next 5 years.
Didn't we just agree a couple months ago?
You did make an action item, where did I write that down? In February, on your February 12th meeting.
Okay.
So this is just the signed agreement that goes with that.
Okay.
We're a little bit behind.
All right.
Okay.
On the paperwork.
So let's do the first one, the first action item, which is the 1 year agreement. So is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Moved by
Second.
Toohill, second by Gandy. Any other questions? Not, please call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Approved unanimously. Then the next action item is the 5 year agreement.
Motion to approve 5-year agreement.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Approved unanimously. And then the last consideration of professional services retainer contract with CMT.
Motion to approve retainer contract with CMT.
Second.
Moved by Toohill, second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Toohill.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Gandy.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Okay, great. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Next action item, consideration of agreement for covenants and restrictions in compliance with the Downtown Housing Grant Program. My understanding of this is that these are the covenants, there has to, she's required to make sure that these stay residential units and that this allows this to be recorded, and as Najah finishes these units and sells them or rents them out, she gives these covenants to the renter and or buyer so that they know that these stay residential.
Move to
transfer of ownership?
Yes, that's my understanding, yes.
That's a covenant, yeah.
Yeah.
So I move to approve agreement for covenants and restrictions in compliance with the Downtown Housing Grant Program.
Okay, moved by Gandy.
Second.
Second by Flournoy. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Gandy.
Yes.
Flournoy.
Yes.
Kness.
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Ham.
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That was approved unanimously. Resolution, consideration of amendment to the city's financial policy. Doug, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, so the city, as we're going through our procurement policies, we actually buy used equipment, but we do not have a policy in our procurement documents that allows us to, and it is something that has been, I believe, addressed by our auditor. We just need to make sure that our actions are aligning with our policies, and that addresses this issue that we may not necessarily as a municipality, we would prefer new, but sometimes we cannot afford new. Equipment has gotten increasingly more expensive, but we want to be able to have the ability to buy used equipment when necessary, and sometimes time constraints allow us to do so, that we can get something right now rather than have to wait 6 months to a year on a piece of equipment, which we've done in the past. So we just want to make sure that that's in alignment.
Great. So is there a motion to approve
So
this
moved.
resolution? Moved by
Second.
Gandy, second by Flournoy. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Gandy,
Yes.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Toohill,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Esti.
Yes.
Great, thank you. That was approved unanimously. The next is ordinance. Consideration of amendment to Chapter 6.12, Animal Control concerning permitted number of dogs. This is the first reading, and the way that I read it is basically limiting a household to 4 mature dogs. And so given that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Does anybody want to speak to that? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and
Can we just point out that the exceptions are breeding and kennel owners?
yes.
And temporary dogs are temporarily kept, and then, of course, the litters, which are not the mature dogs.
Right. Yeah, except that our breeder dogs and kennel dogs, dogs temporarily kept for no remuneration for periods less than 20 days, dogs born to litters not for commercial purpose, not yet mature, more particularly younger than 8 months.
That covers people who are going on vacation with their friend to take care of their dog. They can't be paid for it.
Right.
And then they can keep the dog there above 4 for up to 20 days.
Yeah. And if you got a litter of puppies, you can have those for a certain period of time while you get rid of them.
Okay.
Okay?
I make the motion to move this from the first to the second reading.
Okay, moved by Flournoy. Is there a second? Second by Ham. Any other discussion?
Is this retroactive to people who currently have more than 4 dogs?
It'll apply to everybody.
As soon as it goes into effect, right?
Okay.
Not grandfathered in.
No grandfathering in.
No grandfathering in. Okay? If no other questions, please call a roll.
Flournoy,
Yes.
Ham,
Yes.
Kness,
Yes.
Gandy,
Yes.
Esti,
Yes.
Toohill.
Yes.
So if, and I would just encourage council members to, however you communicate to your constituents that this is on the table, because I got a feeling we could get to the third reading and then we're gonna have a house full of people that might have a different opinion. Maybe not, but we'll see. So however you communicate it out there, I think it's, let's try to get it out there in the public.
It's also probably important to note too, it's not like we're gonna be like breaking down doors, tell us how many dogs you have, it's like we enforce things the way that we enforce our nuisance ordinances, where it's like, it's a problem if it's a problem,
Yeah. Yep.
It's important for people to know as well.
Yep. Okay, under the mayor's report, I just have one thing, and that is Beautification Commission has requested that we appoint Eben White. He's here tonight. You can raise your hand. And actually, if you want to come and just give 2 shakes about yourself, what you're doing in Fairfield, if you grew up here, you moved here, what's your line of work, what do you do, how are you interested?
I've been in and out of town, mostly in, for about 20 years now. Graduated at MUM, now MIU again. And I grew up in Maine, in the woods of Maine, so I literally do a lot of landscaping and forestry mowing, you name it, any type of outdoor work. I'm in a volunteering spirit, and I want to just keep doing all that I can.
Great, thank you. Well, we
Thank you.
appreciate the fact that you want to participate, and so I would take a motion to approve Eben. So
Second.
Okay, moved by Kness, second by Flournoy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Thanks, Deb. Really great things happening with Beautification Commission. Really appreciate it. City Attorney report?
Yes. Thank you for passing the first reading of the dog ordinance. This is going to become a project. Right now, we are working on a case. We already have a finding where 36 animals is a public disturbance. And that's the way our old ordinance dealt with numbers. It didn't have a specific number. So this will clarify things immensely if we get it through all three readings. But the finding of public disturbance right now that we have is enough for us to go ahead and require the owners in the house that has 36 dogs to do the remedy. And we have a compliance hearing on that within the next 10 days. And we'll see how they're doing, but we're not getting positive reports from the neighborhood. So I expect there will be some more hearings and probably some more disgruntled owners of 36 dogs. The other part of the problem is, what do you do to take 36 dogs down by 32 dogs? The owners have put a couple of the dogs out with relatives, is what I'm told. So that only leaves us with 30 problem animals. And 30 problem animals is the correct terminology. Weston has communicated with Animal Protective League groups and shelters, and it's hard to find somebody that's willing to place out 30 animals if it comes to that. But if we don't get cooperation from the owners, which is my prediction, we're probably going to have the court order removal of the animals. That's something in the state code that we can accomplish, but our own ordinance also gives us the ability to do that under the civil infraction method that we've proceeded under. So we're probably going to have a couple of ugly months before we're done with the remedy in that case. In the meantime, we'll be passing the ordinance that has to do with a specific number going into the future. Hopefully after that time, we'll also do some house cleaning on a couple of things that are in the code but not very clear in the code. One of them is our zoning ordinance, which out in our industrial park, you can have a kennel, or you can have a kennel outside of town, but we don't have any other places that I would call kennel facility except the vet clinics. So we need to address that with a little more detail as far as whether you want any other place in town where a kennel could be permitted. The breeder is a little bit different scenario as far as most people, if you tell them, well, we're not going to let you breed your dog in your neighborhood because you'll have too many numbers of animals then. That isn't our goal, and that isn't the way we want people to think we construe our rules about that. If you want to register as having a breed animal and that you're going to raise a litter of pups, it's the American way, I guess. You probably aren't going to get a lot of argument from the city if it's just this situation. If you're having a puppy mill at home and you've got numbers like the present case we're dealing with, I'm not saying that's a puppy mill. It's all kinds of aged dogs in that particular residence. But if we run into that kind of situation, we may want to beef up the way we word our breeder registration and licensing. So there are some spin-offs from this. The ordinance itself makes reference to the things I'm talking about as far as being compliant with those other areas as far as breed and kenneling. Now, enough said about that. This is going to evolve over the next couple months, and we'll see how we're doing. I want to mention a little bit about the nuisance process that we've been working on for the last year or two with Weston's help. We did, I would say, make a little bit of a jump as far as the way the court is willing to work with us on penalizing people that aren't doing what they promised to do when they meet with Weston on their nuisances. So the court is amenable, in my opinion and Weston's opinion, to imposing bigger fines. For instance, $500 to $750. We just did one last week with the idea of $500 penalty was hanging over the individual's head to get some cleanup done that's been long overdue. And the idea of the $500 fine is partly a sword of Damocles to force compliance. At the same time, the court was agreeable to suspend the penalty subject to compliance within a set period of time. We'll have a review hearing. Weston will give the court a report. And if the compliance is complete, we'll go along with the court suspending a significant part of the fine. $300 or $400 will be purged from the penalty, and we'll still keep enough for a fine under our ordinance along with court costs. But that's, when I say that's a jump compared to arguing for penalties that evolve, you know, $100 first, second violation, $200, and so forth, we don't see any reason why we can't put the bigger penalty out there as a motivator. So that's going on right now, and I think Weston's doing a good job of convincing people that we'll work with them, but they have to work with us or it'll cost them. Doug and I were talking this afternoon a little bit about a case that came down in the U.S. Supreme Court. It's called Town of Grant Pass, Oregon, and it's a case that is a little bit different as far as what we've heard from federal courts. And the Supreme Court basically said that Grant Pass, which passed an ordinance that is basically a combination of anti-squatter and anti-vagrancy. And the court said this was challenged by the Legal Aid Society in Oregon, as well as members of the ACLU, on the idea that it was economic discrimination. And I've kind of looked at it this way here as far as whether we should have a vagrancy ordinance or I should try to get an ordinance for you. But we do have a problem with squatters. We do have vagrants in town. We do have very little we can do if people don't want us to have something that helps them. And I know Weston has tried in various cases to relocate people that are living in squalid conditions or they're living in conditions that we have to work on condemning. At this point, the Grants Pass case gives us a possible way to have an ordinance that's not economically discrimination. At the same time, the Supreme Court basically said you can have a lot of other municipal legitimate reasons for wanting to regulate basically public order, public health, circumstances as far as private property rights. All of those things are legitimate interests of the municipality. And so it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see them come down with something like this to let us take a second look at what we want to say and how we want to regulate this. So sometime this fall, one of our committee meetings, I'm going to encourage you to have that discussion and where you'd like to go with it. But I'll try to get you that case and the high points in it to talk about and read before we get into that kind of a discussion.
Do you want that at the work session, John?
We could do that. That might be a great idea.
Okay.
Sure. Other than that, I wanted to say a little bit about something that occurred to me tonight as we were listening to our request for a refund. And one of the problems we run into, and I don't have a good answer for this, but I have heard that excuse in court numerous times, and the city shouldn't be taking the black eye for the way it handled Ragbri. We were short-handed on some of the volunteers. But one of the things I would say we take a look at the next time RAGBRAI comes through here is something more in the ordinance as far as indemnification, so that we don't get the blame if there's some stuff that doesn't work right. And then the other part of this is, I don't like to see people feel that they've been brutalized by the way we ran an event, because we really didn't intend to brutalize anybody by having some vehicles towed. But I've heard these arguments too about snow days. I've heard it about clearing the piles out along the curbs uptown and so forth. And things like, well, I don't read a newspaper. Well, that's not the city council's fault. That's just a way of life for an awful lot of people anymore. There's a lot of people that aren't very computer adept, or they could look at the newspaper on the computer. And they don't do much with social media. I'm not sure where the news comes from anymore, because it's just country music on KMCD and very little of local news anymore, the way it's set up. So I'm not sure, short of putting great big signs out or billboards or something like that, how you're going to get through to some people that really don't access anything from any of the medias. Seemed like a perfectly lovely person as far as coming and saying that she was really put off by the way this worked. But I also know that I had probably 4 or 5 calls from people about, does that mean what it says on the handouts from the RAGBRAI group? Because every merchant around the square did get something that had that information on it. I had it on my conference tables, and clients that came in that morning, we talked to them about, don't park out front through the noon hour. There's a back lot and it'll work fine. And I was concerned that someone might get tagged in front of us, but I didn't realize that 7 people got towed. I heard there were a couple that got towed. So in the future, I suppose, it's one of those things, if we want to try to soften the impact of something like that happening, I suppose see if the paper will give us a front page story that says the headline, "Be careful where you park," or something like that. But I think we were very courteous about the way we handled this tonight, and hopefully nobody feels we're heavy-handed about letting events like that happen. So, enough said.
Yeah, thank you, John. Committee and board reports, there's nothing listed. Anybody got anything to share? Don't think so. Administrator and department reports.
I'll be brief, and then I'll set for questions. I wanted to let the council know that we were awarded $17,850 for the fire station, and I want to thank Maggie Reinert and Melanie Carlson and Brent Farrell for getting all of that information together and submitted. Let's see, we went to the Engage Fairfield on July 29th and met a lot of people out at MIU, and Melanie has created a business card that we will essentially look like this, and they'll be able to do a QR code and go straight to our employment. That's for the survey, but Melanie had created a business card for that. It goes straight into our job applications, and there was
some of those distributed to council members.
we can do that as well. We just got to get the.
Never know, Melanie.
So.
We're hiring full-time.
I wanted
You're
to,
always hiring full-time, Dave.
I wanted to bring up quickly that 405 South D Street is moving forward, and it probably needs to go to the property committee for recommendations of what could potentially happen, and we can have Weston there to kind of get us up to speed in what we're doing with that. And then lastly, September 12th through the 13th, the city offices will be closed to the public for training, and transactional services will be shut down, but this is part of our software that we've got to keep working on, making sure that we're doing all the things that we need to be doing to reduce errors. I said for questions.
405
so-
South D, that's the blue building that we boarded up?
No.
Yeah. No.
Was a different one?
That's.
Yeah.
I
The one down by Washington School.
Make a motion to refer that to the property committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ham. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, great. That will go to property committee.
Is that the one where they took down the retaining wall?
No, that's
Or
where
the
the support
support walls?
Yes.
The white
It's
one.
collapsed.
Okay.
White, blue.
Great. Thank you. That's it. Melanie doesn't have anything? All righty.
I had one other thing really quick, and I apologize for being late this evening. On the consent agenda, under the library board minutes, I believe paragraph Carnegie board minutes. I believe under paragraph 6, there's a reference to honoring the city's raise policy for their employees. But they went beyond on one of them where one of the employees who was making $900 a pay period, they agreed to raise to $1,800 a pay period, and exhaust their budgeted funds in the first 6 months, and then come to the city 6 months later for an adjustment. So nothing, no motion, nothing that we're going to do about it. I just want to make it aware that that's probably not proper procedure.
What they're doing is they're taking the salary that we awarded for a year, doubling it and awarding it over a 6-month period, right?
Right, and then coming back
And then they're
after
gonna
6
come
months to ask for
So is that-
an adjustment.
Is it kosher?
They can do that in the first 6 months, but they're coming back. Their intention in the minutes is to come back to us after 6 months and ask for more.
I guess I just assumed at that point we would decide whether or not.
And we probably will, yeah. But I just want to just put it out there that.
They're putting us in behind an 8 ball because they've established a history of paying this person at a certain rate. Now they're going to fire them, or we're going to.
Well, it wasn't really proper procedures for them to do it that way, so, but that's it.
Okay.
I think
Thank
I
you
had one
for-
question too about that, but I can't remember
Yeah.
if I can find it.
Why don't you check in with Doug with that about later?
Yeah, it's
Same,
not important.
like, increase that we gave everyone else?
No, and they're contracted employees, they're not city employees, so.
So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Toohill. Second by Kness. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
So typically they could find